Nah. Hello, hi, hello. I'm drinking tea lemonade by Gold Peak. I was gonna drink blackberry ginger ale, but I decided not to. So the thumbnail cards today are interesting. It's mid March. The 15th was the Ides of March. Today is St. Patrick's Day, and the Equinox is coming. So I'm gonna pull three cards with clarifiers. Card for the Ides of March. Ides of March, it's that Caesarian, Brutarian energy, the stabbing of Caesar. St. Patrick's Day, it's going of a feel of when he was like chasing snakes off the island. My St. Patrick's lore is not complete, but I knew he got some snakes off the island or something. And then the equinox is the point where the night is as long as the day, and it heralds in the spring. Now, the cards that came out, it's the Seven of Swords and the Seven of Pentacles, which is interesting. But Seven of Swords, that's like the Ides of March, right? They stabbed Caesar in the back. What did Gretchen say? They should totally stab Caesar. I should watch that movie. I don't know. I'm using the Tarot Apocalypses and the Witches Tarot. And I'm going to try to keep this fairly short because I'm being a naughty boy again today. And I am trying to get more food that's going to be tasty instead of cooking. Excuse me, but I'm going to be going on mini retreat part 2. I'm excited. So I'm going to see my buddy next week. And so I'll be cooking more then. So, um, yeah. And I'll spend a little bit of time there before they leave the country. If like travel was a thing, I would just like go to London with him for a little bit. But it's not really. So, All right, anyway. Let's get into the Ides. And it reminds me of the Ides. The Ides is when when the food is good and you eat so much that the tryptophan kick in and like you get sleepy. Now tryptophan, I can't remember if it's a derivative of serotonin or if it leads to serotonin in the metabolic pathway. Oh, tryptophan, if you get sleepy, it's melatonin, duh. So tryptophan is on the melatonin metabolic pathway. And I remember reading things of like, is there actually enough tryptophan in turkey to make you sleepy on Thanksgiving? And then it also reminds me again of those, not necessarily, but it's those like key nutrients that our bodies need but can't produce. But if you eat too much of it, it makes you sleepy. Well, it's almost, I guess, that energy of like too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. Because it's like you inundate your body with a certain nutrient. And what it does is it disproportionately raises that, which could increase the demand on like whatever else is needed in that metabolic pathway. Because your body isn't just going to let it continue to build and build and build. It's going to have to do something with it. And maybe that's why it goes down that melatonin pathway. Because it's like, well, this is a lot of tryptophan, my guy or my girl. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? And it's like, oh, well, we could turn it into melatonin and it's not bedtime, but then we don't have a tryptophan buildup. And I feel like it's coming through with the energy of abundance for some reason. And it reminds me of it's somewhere, the message on the Six of Pentacles, it's to give as you receive. The Six of Pentacles, it's not like the suit of Pentacles in general, because you end with the King and the Queen. It's not really a suit of hoarding or storehousing. And it's an energy that's like blessed to be a blessing. Because too much of anything can turn to rot and decay, I guess. I guess it's just a little bit of something to keep in mind as we come into this season of abundance and blessing. Also, what's been on my mind lately, or especially today, it's like, and it's something that I guess I've been in the energy of for a minute. It's the things that need to transpire in order for other things to occur. So, like, if you're manifesting something, then what needs to happen in order to make that manifestation a reality? And it's almost a plausible reality. And as soon as I say plausible reality, it reminds me of plausible deniability. And I'm not 100% sure what plausible deniability is, but it's like, is there any reason that you could think of that this person would be in this place at this time and not be, I don't know, I've been watching a lot of horror movies, so I was going to say and not be the killer. Uh there's been some slashers, and it's like, yeah, like they lived there, they went home, or they went to the grocery store because it was Taco Tuesday. They always eat tacos on Tuesday, so that's why they were there. But plausible, what did I say? Like manifestability, I guess. It's like, because while miracles do happen, they're not necessarily easy to precipitate. And so then things always flow. There goes my head. Oh gosh. Things always flow through the path of least resistance. And so if there's something that you're manifesting, but you have a lot of resistance to it in the ways in which it wouldn't require as much time, energy, or effort, then what has to transpire that you can accept to get you to get that? And I say that because we're coming upon the end of the year, maybe one of the darkest years on planet Earth in a minute, globally, collectively dark. And it's that question of like, what has to transpire in order for these things that we've been manifesting to be made real? And just as we individually sort of have to be pushed through a dark night to reach the other side, collectively, it's kind of the same. Um, and that could be more dependent on the region of the world that you live in. But if it's like very conservative or traditional, or if it doesn't readily welcome change, then it's like it increases the magnitude of the tower that has to fall in order to get things to happen. And it's not that we should be careful when we manifest things, but it's, again, it's like we should be mindful of what has to transpire in order to get that thing to become reality. And it's almost like the magician spot is, it's just like King of Swords in reverse energy, but it's not. It takes an energy, like it looks like the King of Swords in reverse because it's a very cerebral and logical and reasoning energy. And it's not in like things that aren't necessarily concrete. So it's not like a King of Pentacles. And there are some tones to the King of Pentacles, but it's more King of Swords, but it's in reverse because there are some things that it accepts that it doesn't know, that it doesn't argue or try to create a reason for. And it's almost like, you throw something in a random number generator. You don't know how the random number generator works, but you know that if you use it in a certain way, it spits out a higher number. And so like it's the energy, like the energy is in reverse because it doesn't fully know the whole process, the nitty-gritty details, but it's upright because it knows that it doesn't have to know. It knows how to use it. And so it's like it creates an energy where it's easier to precipitate miracles because it reduces friction and resistance in a lot of ways. It's like, you're manifesting $1 million, but you're only accepting it if it's in a lotto ticket, but you never buy a lotto ticket. So It's like there's like inherent distance between you and your manifestation. Okay. Can I like get a card now? Or am I just gonna keep rambling? Who's that? The Chariot and the Ten of Pentacles at the cut. Okay. I mean, I love that energy. My head is starting to hurt. There are a few signs that I get. Oh, another thing is like the energy behind the cards. If you're a reader or something like that, right? If you look at cards, if you look at signs or synchronicities, you can see a card, but there's a whole story contained within each card. The card is more than just a card. And again, it comes through as this energy of like the things that need to happen and the things that need to transpire in order for something else to happen. What kind of happens behind the scenes and behind the scenes is different for every play, for every person. There we go. How many cards is this? Well, I'll just read this. The Hangman and the Eight of Wands. There's an energy here. It's an energy of gaining traction. And it's like sometimes you have to slow down to speed up. If you move too fast and there's no friction, then there's no traction. And if there's no traction, there's no growth. And so part of the Hangman's journey is learning to release limitation, learning to release limiting beliefs and restrictions. But it's also learning that when you hit them, it's necessary. Bottom of the deck is Judgment. And so Hangman is, being water, being Neptune, being Pisces. It's that going with the flow type of energy. And if water, like if there is a stream with multiple pathways and it hits a bridge in one, like it hits a dam in one, then it'll just continue to flow in the areas that are open. But also, water over time erodes things. And so there's something about, like, because primarily we're here to grow. So even if you do come into the space of miracles, I guess it's not necessarily going to be all instantaneous. But if your path is to grow and to master your ability to manifest miraculously, then would you need friction? I feel like a path like that, though, would have some serious, like, ego control, gateway blockages, things. You would have to learn to release a whole bunch of ego if that's a path that you sort of go down. All right, so I'm gonna give this 5, and then I'm pulling wherever I feel like it. For the Ides, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we'll take this one. For the Saints. Oh, is that the moon? It is the devil. Okay, well. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last one. Oh, there we go. Thank you. And then for the Equinox. For the Equinox. Three more. 2 more. 1 more. Final one. There we go. Fitting. Okay. There's the Equinox. Bottom of the deck is Temperance. Temperance, it's giving me the alchemy of life energy. And the alchemy of life, it's feeling like what I was talking about. It's like the alchemist is able to understand the base materials that he's working with, or she, they. The base material that they're working with as well as the process. And you have to know both, because if there is a difference in the material, then you may have to adopt a different process or take different steps. The alchemist also needs to know how to identify impurities and how to remove them. Let's say that you like, because it like there's the quality of the raw material, right? And so if you have a material that isn't as purely whatever you are desiring to transmute, then there may be more rinse and repeat steps to remove more and more impurity. Also, it's important to know the quality that you're aiming for, as well as the acceptable amount of difference. It's like the amount of tolerance, right? It's like if you need something to be 95% pure, but if it's 92% pure, it'll still work, then that's a 95% target with a tolerance of 3%, right? And so there's a lot that actually goes into it. But it's also this like, what is it? Who is it? Malkuth and the one at the base of the tree. It's this Malkuth and others energy. Because Malkuth is like the emanation that holds all emanations. It's the universe contained in a single drop of water. And so it's this like that's sort of the reflective nature of reality, that it shows those principles to us. But it's the alchemist that learns to see through the eyes of nature and spirit, and not so purely through the eyes of man, because man's understanding is limited. And so, with a limited understanding, you can see something and interpret it incorrectly. I should have known when my head started to hurt that this would be whatever. One moment. Wait. I'm going to timestamp this. Oof. I'll say like 17. I'll say like 16 minutes. Bear with me, please. What is that? Like 0000. Shuffling every day. I'm shuffling, shuffling, shuffling. Okay. So the only card that made an appearance is the Equinox, and in the Equinox sits the Hangman. And I just talked about the Hangman with the Eight of Wands. The Equinox being the space of equal night and day. It gives the Hangman an energy of appreciating cycles and getting the most out of a cycle. And what puts this at odds is that a lot of Western culture has become super productivity focused, but it's reminding like it's a siesta energy. It's like if we work and work and work all day, eventually our productivity is going to go down. Our productivity actually goes up when we take breaks. Imagine that. Hey, Solar Fire. So I'm going to clarify these with the Witch's Tarot, like I said. We'll start with the Ides. And for the Ides, it's the wheel. Oh my gosh. Girl. Well, that was that was a moment, right? So I'll say like 1920. Um the Ides, so it's interesting. I took Latin from freshman year to how you doing, Solar Fire? I don't know if I asked. I took Latin like all of high school. And we watched I Claudius. And the thing with Romans and the emperor was that they had a few not great ones, i.e., Caligula, Nero, they were starting to lose faith in the system and wanting to switch more to the democratic. They had a what they say, the Republic, Senatus Populus K Romanus, the Senate in the Republic of Rome. But then they got Claudius, and Claudius was a really good emperor. And they're like, oh, well, maybe all emperors aren't bad. But then eventually, Caesar happened. Now, I think Caesar happened. I can't remember where Caesar happened because there were a few Caesars. It was like there was one Caesar and he was really good, and then everybody was a Caesar. Um, but it was something that like changed the system when they were like, no, we ain't doing this, bro. And Caesar was like, even you, Brutus? And Brutus was like, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say they. Wait, what was it? Peer pressure. When Caesar asked Brutus why he joined in and he said peer pressure. I just watched Scream for the first time a few days ago. And one of my favorite lines in that movie is like when, was it Sid? When she asked, what was his name? I can't remember. But she was like, what are you going to say your motive was? And he said, peer pressure. But the Wheel of Fortune, it's a changing energy. Two of Wands, it's a new beginning. I forgot already how I was going to do this. Oh, there's a card in reverse and face down. I'll take this later. So the first card, it's going to be sort of like the state of affairs. Man, I really forgot. I should have wrote it down. This is why I always write it down or take a note so I don't forget. Okay. So this is the state of affairs. This is how it plays out. No, this is the Brutus. That was the Caesar. This is the Brutus. So with this Wheel of Fortune energy, I feel like the Wheel of Fortune is coming through in a preventative way. It's changing the way the story plays. And so this time, instead of Caesar being stabbed and dying, he just like, steps down, or he's like, you know what? I realize that y'all ain't happy. Yes, I have a lot of power as the emperor of Rome. No, I'm not trying to die. So let me know what I need to do. There's a heavy element of communication here and listening. I mean, listening is a part of communication. That's the Caesar. Show me Brutus. Should I look at Caesar first? Nah. Show me Brutus, please. Actually, I already have two cards. So I'll take the first one as Caesar and the second one as Brutus. And the first one did come out in reverse. Oh, it's the Two of Wands. The Two of Wands came out in reverse. So this is a limit on ambition. This feels like it's a question of should I? There's a heavy Five of Swords energy here from the Ides of March, 315 roughly. The Five of Swords is a card of boundless ambition paired with a disregard for others. It's a dog eat dog kind of world mentality. But so we're changing the story. And like I said, this is Caesar being like, I have a lot of power here, but I realize it's not just about me. And if I continue to make it just about me, I'm gonna end up like traditional Caesar, right? Stabbed in the back and the front and the sides. And then it was like they couldn't hold anybody accountable for the murder of Caesar because they all stabbed him. And they didn't know which one did it. So they were like, oh, we'll just let you all off. It's like, what? That don't make sense. I would prosecute all of them. Sorry. Anyway, I'm turning over a new leaf. It's a good leaf. I'm just being in the energy that I've wanted to be in. Sometimes it's as simple as just making a choice. And maybe that's what this is as well. Because the Two of Wands sometimes can be a card of a crossroads. It can be a card of having that inspiration at the Ace of Wands, but not necessarily knowing which way to go about accomplishing it, the fork in the road. And so it's like instead of making it this whole thing, it's an energy of like, just do it. It's a Nike energy. Brutus is coming in with the Nine of Swords. That's what changes the story. Because it's like Brutus didn't actually want to do what he did to Caesar. But Brutus realized that if Caesar would have continued to be Caesar, how bad it would have been for for Rome, for the Empire of Rome. And that's how everyone else won Brutus over against Caesar, because it's like, what's good for Rome? This is Caesar also asking, what's good for Rome? And what's good for Rome may not always be what's best for Caesar. And so there's this Bruterian, this Brutus energy somewhere that it's like it feels like it wants to support you. It feels like it has strong emotional ties to you, but it's almost like it's being asked to be responsible. And this thing could be anything. Abundance is a frequency. And if we look at abundance as a frequency, then it becomes about resonance. And when something is about resonance, even if it doesn't have feelings, we can still sort of attribute desire to it, because those that are likely resonant are attracted to each other, and those that aren't are repelled and repulsed. The Wheel of Fortune speaks of seasons. It is Ceres, Demeter, in this deck. And Ceres energy lately, it's coming in as like it's time for Ceres to finally accept that Persephone has grown up, that she has her own life, she has a husband and a new home, and that she can't continue to let the earth die just because her daughter's gone. And so it's echoing a little bit of this Two of Wands in reverse Caesar energy. Just like Caesar was the emperor and he had a lot of final say, Ceres has a lot of final say. And there's this need to sort of get out of the self. And honestly, it's also coming in, it's an energy of like spreading out abundance instead of it being so highly concentrated, or wealth, or it's anything, any aspect of abundance. It's about making it less concentrated and more accessible. And so one of these things, it's like it's not necessarily for us to fully integrate. It's not for us to be so integrated into the world that we lose ourselves, but it's not to be so isolated from the world that we separate ourselves from it either. It's like your position in the world can amplify or nullify your impact. Also, with this Nine of Swords on the side of Brutus, I feel like it's asking us to, it's almost like it's asking us if we have the space to think of both Caesar and Rome. It's also asking us if the solution presented is the only way. Because there's a heavy, like, discordant, disharmonious energy here. And sometimes it's the case that it's like, we're under so much pressure that when a solution presents itself, even if it's not an ideal one, we sort of take it anyway. And it's almost like a low key devil energy or a high key devil energy, because again, they knew that he was Caesar's friend, but they also knew that he cared very much for Rome. And they used his love for Rome to turn him against Caesar. And in that position, it's almost like he didn't have enough time to just be like, hey, maybe if I go talk to Caesar, we can work something out. This is heavy, like chain breaking energy. Also, Temperance, the alchemist, is at the bottom of the deck. And there's nothing more like, this is the most alchemical temperance card I've ever seen. He's literally pouring like blood and spirit together and creating the world. And look, the Ace of Swords is behind this. And the Six of Pentacles is behind this Ace of Swords. This Ace of Swords, that's that like, is this King of Swords in reverse or is this King of Swords upright type of energy? There's a squirrel on this Ace of Swords. This squirrel is climbing the Ace of Swords like it's a tree. I see some runes back here. I don't know what they mean. My runic is rusty. There's no crown on this Ace of Swords. I do see a noose on a tree though. The noose on a tree, this is Odin energy. The suit of swords is Nordic, so that makes sense. You see that? Where is it? Right here, the little noose on the tree. Oh, the runes, girl, duh. Odin hung himself from the world tree, or he hanged himself from the world tree to read the runes inscribed on it. That's how he learned magic. Also, the hanged man is right here in the space of the equinox. But it's like magic is a language. It also reminds me of like a high priestess energy and how the high priestess doesn't necessarily like she does, but sometimes it's like we can feel like the high priestess keeps secrets because spirit doesn't speak in words. Spirit sings in signs and synchronicity. And it's like you're asking spirit a question that you yourself don't have the answer to, but spirit talks to you or it will speak to you. It's like an association. And so if you don't have anything that you can associate to the answer, then it's not able to be translated. Right? Like, let's say you're like, Spirit, like, I just got this job opportunity and I don't know if I should take it. What should I do? And then you're listening to the radio and you know that should I stay or should I go song comes on immediately, followed by like ready to go, da 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 da, from the rooftop shout it out, baby I'm ready to go. And it's like that spirit using something that you can form an association to give you the answer that you're looking for. But if you yourself don't have the words, then spirit can't throw them back at you. And so with this Ace of Swords, it's like it's time for us to expand our language or to expand our basis so that now we can begin to comprehend some of the things that we couldn't before. But it's like it's ancient, it's old, it's runic, and there's an energy here of encryption. It's like energy this potent or powerful has to be encrypted. It's the ego blocks and the ego gates. I was like, if you come into like master, like if you come into what's the word? Miracle manifestive energy, where you just like manifest things like that, then it's probably going to have some ego checks because if you're driven by your ego, you could go do a whole bunch of not great stuff. So that was the Ides, but we're changing that story. Again, it's almost like this hangman energy again with the two of wands in reverse and the nine of swords. It's like this moment of pause is important because if you continued as you were, you'd miss it or you would break it or something. So the Saint. Now I timestamped it at 33:50. I'm like 10 seconds behind. That's fine. So the Saint is coming out as the Ten of Wands. Oh goodness. So the two card clarification for the Saint, I mean it's Patrick and the Snakes, right? Oh, well, here's Patrick. Patrick came out immediately. What about the Snakes? That's a whole bunch. The Page of Pentacles. I guess it's more than one snake, so I should have taken it. Okay. And I'll take these to clarify. Bottom of the deck is the Page of Cups. The Page of Cups on the bottom of the deck, it's speaking to me. It's feeling like the beginnings of a deepening spiritual connection. And again, it's like this Ace of Swords, Temperance, almost runic, and almost runic. Ace of Swords, Temperance, runic energy. 3, 4, 5, 6 was just on the clock. It's reading as like it's like as I was so I went off on a whole tangent about the High Priestess, but the original thought was about it's almost like us knowing which spells work here, which energies are compatible with natural energies. And because it's like if you use something that's more natural, it's like the earth already knows what to do with it. It's like marijuana, cannabis, CBD, or THC. How our body has like receptors for it. So it's like there are other things that we can put in our body, things that are synthetic, things that may or may not break down, or we could use the natural thing that our body already has the ability to interact with. And so, because our body can naturally interact with it, depending on what the substance is and how we're using it, it's either easier to work, so it improves the efficacy, or the body will break it down really quickly and it'll make it relatively ineffective. So, there's also a residence time sort of energy. With the Ten of Wands and the Page of Cups, though, it feels like we're making it a lot harder than it needs to be. I guess it's carrying an energy of synthetic approaches instead of ones that are natural. But it's like the natural thing has been outlawed or made illegal to sell you something synthetic. So this one comes in with a little bit of a twisted, high refined energy, a little bit. But the Ten of Wands came out in the second position yesterday. There's like a burden of resurrection energy here. And with this burden of resurrection energy, so there's like a twisted, hierophant devil type energy here. Because it feels like we could just be done with it. It's almost following that Two of Wands in reverse. It's like, or that natural path. It's like we could just start. The journey doesn't have to be long and arduous and difficult. It can be, but it's also carrying an energy that's very Wizard of Oz. It's very Silver Slipper. It's like this man carries a pyramid halfway across the world, trying to do whatever, and then, or maybe all the way around the world. He goes all the way around the world. He goes halfway around the world seeking the high priestess. And then he goes halfway more around the world. Now, this man in the moment doesn't understand that if you go halfway around the world twice, you end where you began. But it's that energy of like, that's why they say it's the journey, not the destination. And sorry. I remember back in the day, because I was like, I understand that it's the journey and not the destination. But like, if I could just stay where I am and get everything, that would be great. Like, because I know if I do something, the problem is at home. So like, can I just like save myself the trip? But it's like you've been carrying the pyramid the whole time. You could have resurrected yourself at any moment. Now that High Priestess Ace of Swords energy is coming in as Goddess Isis and how she resurrected Osiris. Now that gives a different context to the journey because she went all around the world gathering the pieces of Osiris because Set cut him up. But now it's like I don't. There's just some like weird starfishy type of energy because it's like if you get one piece and you perform the ritual, then either that one piece is enough to regenerate the whole body, or all of the pieces will come like flying back to that. It's a reverse entropic energy. I've been watching the show Heroes, Dragon Ball Z, a whole bunch of other things where it's like there's this great event that happens. There's this thing that happens, and then from one point of origin, things shoot across the sky to all different corners of the world. And now our heroes go on a trip, on a journey to gather them all, to chant something, and then summon a great magical creature to perform a miracle. But it's like there's a potential reverse entropic energy here where it's like you get one piece, you do what happened in reverse, and then the rest of them just all fly in instead of you having to go out and look at all of them. I probably should have brushed up on St. Patrick before I did this, but it's fine. So Patrick is coming through as the Ace of Cups, which is very interesting because again, the Page of Cups is on the bottom, and I don't think I ever got to what I was going to say, because it feels like the knowing is already complete, the soul is complete, but it's our understanding that needs to deepen. And that's also what I was getting to at with that, like, we need to find out like what spells work on earth or what things you sort of naturally align to. There's this energy of like solar modality or solar elemental dignities or alignments. It's like the things that you already naturally do well would require less energy and effort for you to manifest, do whatever you're doing on your journey. And again, that goes back to the natural versus synthetic. If your body is already wired to interact with it, then you don't need as much. Sometimes, like a pill is so big because it's like, well, the body is going to dump most of this because it thinks it's garbage or because it can't process it. And so we need to put so much in your body so that after everything is dumped, you have at least 5 left. So we'll give you 1,000,000 hoping that you'll have 5. If you've had a probiotic, that's basically how they work because your stomach is really good at killing things. And a lot of probiotics, like they have to make it to your gut, to your intestines. So they have to survive through the stomach. And most of the bacteria die along the way. Also, the inside of the body is so diverse from the mouth to the intestine. So there are these different phases, these different environments that they have to survive through. And again, most of them will die, but you take so much so that the percentage that do remain is enough. But if it's something that naturally worked with your body, it wouldn't, like, you wouldn't have to worry about that. You wouldn't have to take so much or do so much. There is a natural proclivity here. And maybe that's another reason why the 10 of Wands is struggling so much. It's almost like there's an Ace of Wands easier solution. Numerologically, they're the same. One just takes a lot less effort than the other one. The Ace of Cups, though, is the deepening of this. It's St. Patrick realizing that he's St. Patrick. St. Patrick spoke parcel tongue. That's how he got the snakes off the island. He was just like, hey, snakes, I'm cool. Y'all are cool. The people are scared. Can you leave? And then the snakes is like, well, if we leave, where are we going to go? And Patrick was like, oh, that's a good question. Now, Patrick could have said, I don't care, GTFO. He could have started taking that staff and like stabbing him or something. But we got the Ace of Cups here and the Page of Cups with the Hangman under the Page of Cups. Again, now we see the Hangman hanging from the tree with the Hermit under the Hangman, getting that knowledge. And then the Lovers is under the Hangman. So I feel like the Lovers under the Hangman, again, it's this natural working with the world, with spirit. And when we use those like codes and laws, it reminds me of the Four of Essences energy that came out a long time ago. And I was talking about it like it was the Sage of Essences, because it's like there are these contracts, permits for land. It reminds me of, what was his name? Siegfried or something. It's like he had word magic and he could he could write out commands for a space and everything in that space would have to abide by those commands. And so there's like the basic level that we can learn, and then there's like the master level of these commands. But at the master level, you really look behind the scenes to know how everything works. You have to know how everything works behind the scenes in order to form something coherent. Now, you could do trial and error, or you could learn the runes. This is going to be different for everybody because everybody's different. But yeah, St. Patrick spoke parcel tongue. So he realized though, he was like, okay, because the snakes were like, where are we gonna go? And so he was like, okay, I'll find you a place to go. And then everybody's happy. The islanders are happy that the snakes are gone. The snakes are happy where they could be somewhere, live their little snaky lives, and not have people screaming and trying to kill them. And then Patrick's happy that he got to mediate. And also he came more into whatever. The snake energy is the Five of Pentacles, though. And so that's an energy typically of being out in the cold, all alone on your own. Nowhere to call you home. Sorry. Like if we're friends, and I read for you, like this is what it's like. It's more authentically me though. So, I guess it's coming through. Um I feel like this Five of Pentacles, it's almost coming in as an it's almost coming through as an energy of an inability to see eye to eye with someone. But it's like if we use the principle of oneness, we're all one. And so it's like a harmonious solution should exist, but we can't find it. It's almost like on some level we can feel the unnecessary strain and burden that we're going through. On some level, we know that it can and should be easier, but it's that twisted Hierophant energy, and almost this energy as well. It's that energy of like when you're under stress and you're presented a solution that's not that great, but the stress increases, you take it. It feels like this is that feeling of knowing that there should be a way to satisfy everyone involved. But again, it's like with the Page of Cups. See, that's what's interesting about being a human, about being a sensitive person, but just a human in general. Because I think there are things that we sort of just like intuitively know, but we don't consciously know. There are things that we subconsciously know, but we don't consciously know. And it's this energy, you know how people say like what they don't know can't hurt them, but it's not true. It's like we're hurt and we don't know why. And it's like, well, the reason why we're hurting is because of the higher potential. It's like whenever you hear about people speak of what the 5D or something, it's like, your soul remembers what it was like to exist at a time where there was peace, even if you consciously don't. And so while like that aching, that pain that you feel, it's your soul yearning for the peace that you just can't seem to create, no matter which option or choice you choose, no matter what you do. But the Page of Cups and the Ace of Cups, it's offering us the depth of that connection. And I think it's something that we're coming into. There are ways that we're talking about things, ways that we're looking at things, ways that we're having certain conversations that we weren't necessarily before. And it reminds me, it's like sometimes when you bring things up, people may accuse you of being divisive. It's like, why are you causing division? But like, there's a difference between like being uncomfortable. There's a difference between like causing discomfort and causing division. And again, it's that energy of what has to transpire to get us to where we're going, because there are a lot of people manifesting a lot of things. Age of Aquarius, 5D Earth, um what it's like that the Christ consciousness and things like that, right? And it's like more and more and more people are putting it out there, so it's increasing the energetic demand of it, which it's like it's forcing itself upon us more and more. And as it's doing that, what is snapping and cracking and breaking is all of the ways that the current system doesn't support that. And the real sort of mind F here is that the more things snap and crack and break, the more we see how things aren't what we want them to be, the more we manifest what it is we want. The more we're manifesting 5D and Age of Aquarius and enlightenment and connecting to the soul and like all of this stuff. But again, it's just the question of like, well, how do we get there? What has to transpire in order for that to be a reality? Because things down here are organic, and organic things can hit random spurts, but if it hits a random spurt, there's something that happened internally. And it's not that things can't happen internally. I think things are happening internally, and they're happening externally to trigger more internal things, or they're happening externally to put more pressure on us internally doing what we need to do. And it's like we're asking for a paycheck, but not asking to work. But we're manifesting more and more and more paycheck, paycheck, paycheck. And so the divine is just putting you on more and more jobs. They're giving you more and more hours. And it's like that energy of maybe not seeing. It's that high priestess type of energy. And it's not that it's necessarily hidden. It just feels like something that we're not necessarily asking or considering or thinking about. So the first snake is the Fool. I'm gonna look at all these because the Five of Pentacles came out. It flipped upright, and there were three cards face down on top of it. The Queen of Cups. This is so cups heavy. And the Strength card. Hooray! Okay. Well, this is St. Patrick. First of all, I mean, it's the dude with the stick who's a fool. With that Ace of Cups, St. Patrick was asking the snakes. This is us getting to know why we feel like this in the first place. And it's coming out the Fool, the Queen of Cups, and the Strength card. That's an energy of like, it's an expansion of horizons. It's a willingness to listen. Again, it gets to the root of this. It's like you can't get to the root of this if you don't listen. It's like how like when people ask someone like, "Oh, how are you doing?" but they don't really want to know how they're doing. It's just like a pleasantry. It's a greeting that I exchange. I don't actually care. But this is like someone asking you how you're doing, actually taking the time to listen, having the strength to sit through it with you. I keep hearing that. Oh gosh, I started to whistle. It's so high pitched and it's annoying. If that's the new thing, I'll put up with it. I'll deal with it. Um, but it's like someone actually listening. They're having the strength to listen, to sit there with you, and to work through it with you. And it's almost like in the divine's eyes, that's what made Saint Patrick a saint, because he saw the snakes as creatures of God, right? And instead of just like killing all of them, it's almost like Pied Piper energy, but less abducting children. It's like if the Pied, like if it was still the 17, 15, 14, 18, 1920s, If it was still the 17, 16, 17, 18, 20s, whenever the bubonic plague was a thing and it was being spread by rodents, it's like if the Pied Piper just came in, got all the rats, and then took them to Rat Island where they could live happy rat lives instead of like drowning them in the river or something. Well, I think he drowned kids, but anyway, like it was the rats, it was that infestation that was the source of the plague. And so it's coming through as that energy. It's an energy of ushering. Oh, so now it's beginning to feel like there are a lot of this is interesting. It's reading like there are a lot of disconnected inner children running around the planet wreaking havoc. Oh my gosh, that's the Pied Piper. Okay. Oh, so he is drowning kids, but not in a bad way. Because it's a purifying water, it's the water of spirit. And so it's like what we see as like there are these demons running around on earth causing trouble, doing stuff. The truth of the demon is that it's a disconnected inner child. It's the inner child of someone who has cut themselves off from themselves, who have fallen deeply into a system that does not fulfill them or validate them in any kind of way, that only takes and takes from them to the point where they cope heavily in the world just to begin to not even fill that void, but just to try to dull the pain of the void in the first place. That's this Five of Pentacles energy. And then the Pied Piper or St. Patrick comes in. Oops, well, the fool's on the floor now. I accidentally threw the fool on the floor and I picked him up in reverse. So that's an internal journey. I don't there isn't a Pied Piper outside. This is you inside. That's why the hermit is under the hangman, under the page of cups. And so or maybe they manifested as the rats, right? But then it's like, oh my gosh, the rats are the children. It also reminds me of it for some reason. Like the adults couldn't see whatever it was doing. It was like only the children. Um, and it's almost this energy of like, once you grow up, your greatest fear isn't necessarily a clown or drowning. Or okay, it might still be drowning, but like you may have a fear of like, losing your job and not being able to feed your family. Or it's like they become more like realistic related to day-to-day life rather than taking an image, right? Anyway, so it's like the Pied Piper is piping, playing the music, rounding up all these demons, these disconnected children, leading them to the cleansing, purifying waters of spirit. Now it carries in like a baptismal energy. And once they're purified, then they go back home. And that's what this is. The element of strength, though, it's a release of control. That's what it is. And it's a trust in the belief in the divine. Like it was my path and my journey that like when I got heavy into my spiritual journey, heavy into my healing, I wasn't working or in school. So I had no income. I still had to pay rent and some other bills. I had some ramen noodles and I would go to Taco Bell because they had the dollar menu. In Indiana, taxes is only like 7%, so that's like $1.07. I frequent the dollar menu, or I would walk to Little Caesars and get a cheap $5 pizza that I could eat for 2 days. And there was a decent amount of trust that I had to do to give myself the time I needed to grow in the ways that I needed to in that time. What time is it? Oh, it's 6:46. I'm sorry, girl. It's almost time. I didn't necessarily plan on it being this long, but that it's the strength that's required to almost break away from that twisted hierophant energy and to allow spirit in. There's a cutting of certain cords and a cutting of certain ties and their roots. But at some point, again with that wheel of fortune, it turns things on their head. And so it's like now, instead of the root being at the base of the spine or in the feet or wherever the root is, and the crown being at the top of the head, we turn everything upside down. So now the root is connected to spirit and the crown is connected to the earth. That is this energy of understanding the runes. Because when the root is in spirit, and spirit is the precursor to the earth, then it's like you it's electromagnetic fields. I don't I only took like one class or two. But it's like when you switch your polarity, then it's like it matches the polarity of the natural world. Things flow from spirit to earth. And so we should be grounded and rooted in spirit because that's where it all starts anyway. And then the insight comes in like, oh, I can do this. Oh, I can do that. Right? There's a flipping and there's a switching of the polarities here. First, we sever the ties, and then we go through whatever. More ties severed. We go through that inversion, and then things connect to. I feel like I'm being tied to the ground. I thought my necklace was caught on something for some reason. Um, and then we go through the process where like spirit comes in and connects to those. I mean, and that's perfect for hangman energy, right? Seeing things in a different perspective, going about it in a different way. So the hangman is coming out for the equinox, and I'll say this is 101.45, honestly. 101.45. The equinox. I'm putting in the timestamps as I do this because I can, and then I don't have to do it later. So, 101.45 on the dot. Okay. So, again, this is coming in as hangman energy. It's honestly, it's feeling like eclipse energy where the sun and the moon meet. Oh, it's the equinox, equal night and day. Okay. I was like, it feels like this like sun moon energy. So we'll do the sun. First card that comes out. I'm gonna keep going until a card comes out. So if I'm here for 5 minutes, then I'm here for 5 minutes. But I got like 10 minutes to finish this. Let me not rush it. Actually, I'm not going to pull anything for the equinox. Bottom of the deck is the Six of Cups. Six of Cups in this context, you already know. You already know. Oh my gosh! Look! And there's the King of Wands. The King of Wands in this deck look a little creepy to me sometimes. It's the smile. I'm like, Honestly, though, today, King of Wands is almost carrying a future energy. Or that, like, when I say that, like, spirit is watching you and they're like, so, like, oh my gosh, this is the moment of breakthrough. This is the moment where everything is about to turn around. They're like, their mind is about to be blown. That's low key what it kind of sort of looked like sometimes. Emphasis on the lions. And we just had the strength card. So it's almost coming through as an energy of like, spirit no longer has to give you the strength to do it because you have the strength. And what it does is it changes your relationship with spirit. It's like when you're younger, your relationship with your parents is one thing. But when you get older, your relationship with your parents can change because now they're not necessarily making decisions for you. Now you're not necessarily as dependent on them. And so maybe they advise you more, or you get to be more like of a friend because they don't have to parent you as much. So there's a changing of the dynamic here. And the card that came out is the Six of Cups. These are the freed kids, girl, purified by the waters of spirit, and now they're playing in it. They're having a good time. Golden good time. Is that a thing? Is that a little bit of a dolman in the back? Maybe. Not really, but a little bit of a dolman in the back there. with a light in it. There's a light in that dolmen. It's not, but it's looking like. Oh, is that a gate? Is that the fairy gate? Oh my gosh, I'm gonna say it's the fairy gate because there's a dolmen in the back. I did recently say that that fairy gate is open, didn't I? Or it's opening. Anyway, this is an energy of the reclaimed child, and the inner child then takes on the energy of. I'm not gonna say it's not an inner child, though. It's an inner child, but it's not necessarily how we view children because it's mature. It's not immature or naive. This is that like prime 100% connected, open Muladhara first chakra, root chakra energy. And when I went through meditation school, the root chakra was tied to our sense of innocence. And again, innocence and naivety are not the same necessarily. It's not about being naive, it's not about being unexperienced. It's an energy that it's very hanged man. It is what it is, regardless of what happens. It exists outside of the paradigmatic duality in which we live in. When I was talking about like we're anchoring energies into earth that don't necessarily belong here, or they're not from here, because everything on earth runs in seasons and in cycles. I mean, we started with the Wheel of Fortune, literally seasons and cycles, but changing our relationship with it in the Ides. But it's a stability, it's a groundedness that is unchanged. It's almost like the only constant, the only universal constant is the love that flows from the divine. And we're anchoring that constant in a space where it could be so easy to forget that because of everything that's happening. But earth is organic. And so even if it doesn't even if it's not necessarily native here, or even if it's been gone for so long that now it isn't native here, it's not that it can't be reintroduced or that it can't be introduced, and that it can work its way into the grid, because that's the only word I have for it right now. But it's like it takes us anchoring it and cultivating it and keeping it through the seasons. It's like we're making it perennial. And it was frosted out. Going back to the when I was pulling through the days, right? It's like if the frost pushes your perennial out of the ground, wait until it thaws and gently push it back into place. Because the roots are still good. It isn't dead. And so with this energy, that's what this is. From that opened heart space. And again, we're doing the open heart space because Ace of Cups, Queen of Cups. This is us learning how to have a love that's less conditional. And in the beginning, lesser conditional love is not easy. It's not. It isn't, but it is. It's like unconditional love is the least complicated love that there is because it's unconditional. Now we're not constantly checking, like, are you doing this? Are you not doing this? Now, unconditional love in practiced from a human perspective sense, like there are a lot of things that we have to balance. And we can love unconditionally without being taken advantage of or without setting ourselves up for putting ourselves in unfavorable situations and circumstances. But this heart is on, again, it's learning how blood and spirit come together, how spirit works and presents itself in nature. And then it puts us in a position to somehow replicate it. Because again, the Ace of Swords is there. Odin isn't there anymore. The runes have been unlocked. They're just kind of sort of floating out there. Oh, these are the things that we're gathering. We're gathering all of the runes. We're living our lives, going on our spiritual Ten of Wands journeys. These runes power up the pyramid so we can resurrect our inner child. Well, now the inner child is grown. So if y'all shout out to Wrestling Around, this is that luminous warrior energy. It resurrects the luminous warrior. And what's interesting is the hangman in this deck. It reminds me of the child in the mystical shaman oracle deck. I think it's the mystical shaman oracle deck. It reminds me of the child, but it's grown now. It's grown up. This is such a potent and interesting time that we're coming into. And it's like, well, when you come out of a night as dark as Aries 2020 to Pisces 2021 was, it's that it's like that whole year was a very long and very harsh winter, and now we're coming into spring after that. So it's like like when it was extremely cold and then it got warm for a few days. Even I was going outside. And I love snow. I love snow. I love to be cold. Don't necessarily like to freeze, but I like being cold and I love snow. But even I was like, okay, this sun is feeling good. I'm ready for that winter to be over. Yeah. And what's this? Now the star. What's at the top of the deck? Top of the deck is the Six of Pentacles. The Six of Pentacles was right behind that Ace of Swords. And the star is here. So that's where I'm going to end this. I got to go. But I'll catch y'all when I catch y'all. I hope if you sat through this, then you find something that resonates, assists you along your journey, along your path, something that you can use to grow you in whatever way you need or want. I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. And I will catch you in the next one. I'm glad I did this today. I almost didn't, but I'm glad I did.